Live from the Broadcast Center in Los Angeles, this is KCAL9 News at 4.
History made as President Trump lands in Los Angeles for the first time since taking office.
They shield criminals. We can't do that.
The president taking time out to confront California and also lashing out at Governor Jerry Brown, who's now lashing back.
Meanwhile, protesters and supporters are out in force as the president makes his way from the border to L.A. Good afternoon, I'm Lena Wynn.
And I'm Juan Fernandez. President Trump is in Los Angeles, part of a whirlwind visit to Southern California. It's his first time here since he took office.
We have live team coverage of the president's visit. KCAL9's Michelle Geely is in San Diego. Jeff Nguyen is downtown L.A. But we begin with Dave Lopez, where a protest and a fundraiser on tap tonight in Beverly Hills. Dave.
Oh, I'm sorry. Over to me, Dave. I'm sorry, I didn't hear the cue. It's not much of a crowd here. There's a few people here at this park right here on the corner of Cannon and Santa Monica Boulevard. And as you can see, less than 100 are here. The people who have organized this said that they figure the crowd to really be in force around the 5:30 hour. About 3:30 this afternoon, we had a real downpour, and the few people that were here scattered. It is not raining now, but just very overcast and very dreary. But as you can see, they're just milling around. A number of the people told me, don't worry, we will be here. A number of signs. I think many of them are safe enough to show on television. We're being very, very careful not to show too many of them. A few here say impeach the president, impeach Trump. There's one that says you are fired. This park is actually in Beverly Hills, and that is where the fundraiser is going to be. We do have a shot of where the president is going to wind up, probably within the next half hour. As you mentioned earlier, it is at the home of Ed and Sherry Glazer, who are the co-owners of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers of the NFL. Mr. Glazer is of the family of Malcolm Glazer, who was a multi-billionaire in Southern California, who was the original owner of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The home is a very exquisite home. It is behind closed gates. It is very difficult to get to, a long winding road. LAPD has, it's in the LA area. That's why LAPD has blocked off. There's no parking up there. It would be a total uphill climb to get there. The home is 23,000 square feet, 8 bedrooms, 11 baths, a palace. And to get in there, it's going to cost you a pretty penny to support Mr. President, the president and the Republican Party. It is $35,000 for a single person. It is going to be $50,000 for a couple. That includes dinner. $100,000 will get you in as a individually, and you get to have your picture taken with the president. And for $250,000, you will be able to sit at a round table that have been set up in tents, I am told, outside in the yard, and discuss politics with the president and get your picture taken. That's for $250,000. They're expecting this little event will raise about $5 million. And then from here, the president, we believe he is going to go to downtown at the Intercontinental Hotel, the brand new one that is on the corner of 7th and Wilshire. I was there this afternoon. The place is like a fortress. We'll probably have more on that later on. But for now, the crowd is continuing to come. It'll be a good question if it rains again, just if this crowd will be smaller than expected. All of this was done through social media. We're told a number of organizations have said that they are hoping to get about 1,000 people here. They're rather quiet. Some are out there by the street holding up signs. But for now, it's in the beginning stages, kind of like a baseball game where they just open up the gates and the early arrivals want to see batting practice. Well, this is batting practice. The main event, apparently, according to the organizers, is yet to come. Back to you in the studio.
All right, Dave, thank you. After tonight's fundraiser, President Trump is expected to spend the night at a hotel downtown.
KCAL9's Jeff Nguyen is there live where security is tight. Jeff?
It certainly is. You know, Dave Lopez mentioned the Intercontinental Hotel, and that's right behind us. This is where sources are telling us that the president will spend the night, and you can see why people are saying there's a lot of black and whites out here. Robert Pastoriza, I'm going to ask you to pan to your left. You can see a lot of security right there in front of the Ernst & Young building out here. You know, there is just a lot of security out here, and earlier in the day, we saw a number of K-rails being put down, 2 black and white units over here and across the street from where we are. This is where LAPD is allowing demonstrators to basically post later on in the evening. Right now, no one is there to demonstrate so far. LAPD telling us that there is no permit to demonstrate because the details of this visit has been very tight-lipped in recent days, although LAPD is making sure that people have an opportunity to basically voice their concerns and exercise their First Amendment right. Robert, I'm going to ask you to pan to your right, and you can see just how tight Figueroa is around 7th right now. There is a huge bus right there, a number of police cars to basically make sure that security or cars do not go through here. And a part of the security concerns in this area is some of the homeless population. LAPD telling us about 24 homeless people were asked to leave some encampments nearby. There were no arrests. People basically volunteered to leave. The concern with these encampments is that there are a number of tents out here. So the last thing law enforcement wants is for someone to be hiding in one of those tents and then popping out when the motorcade goes by. So the president is expected to be here around 8 o'clock, 8:30 after that fundraiser that Dave Lopez is covering. Just moments ago, he landed at Santa Monica Airport after arriving at LAX. There was a short chopper ride between LAX and Santa Monica before the motorcade goes up to a gated community for a fundraiser tonight in Beverly Hills. So we will stay out here and keep an eye on things and check in with you if anything changes. For now, we'll send it back to you.
Yeah, those streets are quiet behind you there, Jeff. All right, thanks so much. Here now are the streets that will be closed as a result of the president's visit. They'll be in effect until 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Figueroa Street between 6th and 8th Streets, Wilshire Boulevard between Flower Street and Beaudry Avenue, 7th Streets between Flower and Bixel Streets, and the 7th Street and Fig entrance to the metro station there will be closed for the rest of the day.
President Trump's California trip also included a stop at Marine Corps Air Station Miramar in San Diego. He addressed a supportive crowd filled with members of the military. He spoke about several issues and took aim at so-called sanctuary cities here in California.
They shield criminals. We can't do that. And that is why we are asking Congress to ensure that no federal funds subsidize this dangerous and unlawful behavior. We want to protect you, and we want to protect all of our families. We want to protect our nation.
The president also praised the efforts of the U.S. military, and he promised to hand out what he says will be the largest pay raise in over a decade to service members next year. Supporters and opponents of the president's border wall were in San Diego County to greet him this morning, and during his tour, the president took a swipe at Governor Brown. KCAL9's Michelle Geely continues our live team coverage with that part of the story. Michelle?
Lena, a few hours ago, a few hundred people were right here behind me to cheer for the president, hoping, of course, to catch a glimpse of him. That never happened. And then at another stretch of the border, not far from where I'm standing, there were a few hundred others, both for and against Mr. Trump, who came out to be heard. Protesters against President Trump shouted down a lone supporter at the San Ysidro border crossing before Mr. Trump's morning tour of the border wall prototypes.
This is totally unfair that all these illegal alien immigrants, advocates, they're just making all this noise and accusing President of being a racist, which is untrue.
Nearby in Otay Mesa, around 300 pro-Trump demonstrators set up shop in a vacant lot near the international airport. They called themselves the Welcome Party. Young and old wore red, white, and blue, carried signs and waved flags. People drove down from Pasadena, Riverside, and Los Angeles to celebrate the president's arrival in California.
I just wanted to see Trump and support less taxes in California, following the Constitution. That's really important to me.
The country right now is going through a lot of dire straits right now, and but we feel that he's actually fulfilling what he promised he would do, and that's what we're here to stand. We're here for.
At the border near the display, there was a big law enforcement presence. A small group, both for and against the president, came early.
So it doesn't make any sense to me, because desperate people that want to really come to work are not going to let that wall stop them. It didn't stop me.
It is possible to work together, but I feel that Donald Trump is only about himself, and he's not cooperating with anyone else.
The crowd of demonstrators grew to a few hundred by the time the motorcade passed by. The scene was peaceful. After looking at 8 different wall displays, Mr. Trump used part of his time in San Diego to attack Governor Jerry Brown.
Well, I think Governor Brown's done a very poor job running California. They have the highest taxes in the United States. The place is totally out of control. You have sanctuary cities where you have criminals living in the sanctuary cities.
Governor Brown sent out a tweet of his own. Thanks for the shout out at Real Donald Trump. Brown wrote, but bridges are still better than walls, and California remains the 6th largest economy in the world and the most prosperous state in America. I'm Michelle Gili, live in Otay Mesa. Back to you.
All right, Michelle, thank you. The president's inspection of wall prototypes was within feet of the current border wall. And on the other side of the wall in Tijuana, protesters put up signs making sure the president knew how they felt about his visit. They shouted, "We won't pay for your wall," and told reporters any new version would be a waste of money.
Our coverage of the president's visit to the Southland will continue throughout the newscast and, of course, ahead next hour on our sister station CBS 2, as well as tonight on KCAL9 News at 8, 9, and 10.
Well, just before heading west, the president shook up his cabinet, announcing that Secretary of State Rex Tillerson is out. KCAL9's Weijia Jiang has the latest White House shakeup and who's been picked to fill the slot.
Rex Tillerson said President Trump called him hours after he'd been fired as Secretary of State.
What is most important is to ensure an orderly and smooth transition during a time that the country continues to face significant policy and national security challenges.
Departing the White House Tuesday, the president called Tillerson a good man, but said they didn't always see eye to eye.
We disagreed on things. When you look at the Iran deal, I think it's terrible. I guess it was okay.
The president used a morning tweet to announce Tillerson's departure and his replacement, CIA Director Mike Pompeo.
We're always on the same wavelength. The relationship has been very good, and that's what I need as Secretary of State.
This White House reshuffling comes ahead of President Trump's planned meeting with North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un. Tillerson was in Ethiopia when the president accepted Kim's invitation.
Pompeo still needs Senate confirmation to start his new job. Republicans are eager to move that process along.
Pompeo seems like someone who also has a distinguished background. I just need to get to know him.
Democrats are concerned Pompeo may be too partisan and the consequences of Tillerson's sudden departure.
This creates instability in the world. It creates a more dangerous situation for the United States.
President Trump says he's nominating Pompeo's deputy, Gina Haspel, for the top job at the CIA.
In Washington, Weijia Jiang, KCAL9 News.
Sprinkles and light showers across Southern California today. The first of 3 storms this week was, as you may have noticed, pretty weak, right?
Yeah, it rained just enough in Glendale today to put the wipers and headlights on for a few minutes. This is the 134 and 101 freeways just after lunchtime. Fortunately, we did not hear of any big traffic problems. Nope. Meteorologist Amber Lee has an update on more rain coming. Amber.
Yeah, you know, this system just didn't hold together the way the computer models predicted, so that's why the intensity of the rain was very weak compared to what we were forecasting earlier. So that's why the watches have all expired early on, but we are still left with moisture. You can see that it is pretty active now on the radar, but just not looking at the heavy showers that we thought we were going to see. We're still seeing some light rain and also some drizzle, and that's going to continue with us as we head into later tonight. And you can see it's starting to work its way over to Orange County and also to the Inland Empire. This is still part of that big system to the north of us. This is just the first of a couple other systems that will move its way over to Southern California as we head into the next few days. Here's a look at those temperatures. Because it is tapping into subtropical moisture, temperatures today a little bit warmer than normal. So we topped right about where we should be this time of year at 70 degrees, but I'll talk about storm number 2 and 3 coming up. Back to you.
Well, in parts of Santa Barbara County, homeowners were prepared for the worst, but got some encouraging news. KCAL9's Greg Mills is live in Montecito with the late details for us. Greg?
And Lena, we got here hours and hours ago, early this morning, and the rain had already started, but we never got the heavy rain here, and that was the good news. In fact, right now, we're getting the lightest rain we've had all day. This rainstorm was far from over when it was deemed safe enough to lift the evacuation order and allow homeowners to head home. Michael Bonney was one of the first to return. He checked Montecito Creek that runs behind his home. It handled the stormwater beautifully. Just a nice stream moving through it.
There's been some boulders that have come down here.
That's his memory from January 9th, when the creek overflowed, sending a deadly mud flow through this part of Montecito. The power and the noise stunned Bonnie.
She could hear the boulders rumbling down. Well, I mean, I thought it was an earthquake at first.
Now when the rain hits, people who live here hit the road. They've dealt with mandatory evacuation orders a few times.
There's that fine line, you know, it's like, are they doing it too much? Are they doing it not enough? But not going to take any chances, not until we get at least several more decent rains.
With more storms headed this way this week, Bonnie and his wife expect there will be more evacuation orders. He's already made the hotel reservations.
Actually, I've got it locked down until Sunday morning. Just because who knows what's going to happen with the rain.
He knows evacuation orders are possibly life-saving. So no matter how many orders come his way, he'll just deal with it.
It's either that or move. And I really don't want to move.
And this afternoon, we have seen more and more people coming by checking out this creek. One man told me, you have to. Juan, Lena, back to you two.
All right, Jeff. Thank you so much, Greg. Sorry about that. Coming up, a woman who claims singer Trey Songz attacked her is telling her story today. You'll hear it next. And for years, all these four siblings, all they had was each other. Now they have parents, the adoption that's prompted a standing ovation in court. And tragedy in flight after a dog in a carrier is forced to fly in an overhead bin. More news after the break.